Welcome to your reading. This is a picture of your birth chart here, and I'm going to be using this as I talk about your chart, highlighting some things so that you can get a visual. I think sometimes when you have visuals, it can make things, seem more real or concrete. Before I go into your chart, I'm going to talk about the philosophy behind how things work. I guess you would call it the mechanics of VA. So what we're looking at is we're looking at two of the many natural laws. So we're looking at the law of polarity or duality, and then the law of evolution, and how these two laws are interacting within your birth chart. And these are natural laws, the creator's laws. So these are things that are. We don't always want them to be things that are, but they exist and they're true laws, and they impact us and impact our life. So when I look at a chart, I'm looking at how a person is going to grow, how their consciousness is going to evolve over time. And the way that we grow and evolve is through the merging and balancing and an eventual transcendence of these archetypes, these polarities, these energies that are held in duality. Okay, so for you, your most recent incarnations, you've been utilizing a specific energy, a specific archetype to incarnate, because this is what your soul is working on at this time. It's working through this archetype to experience life, through your incarnations. And when we incarnate and we have these successive lives lived on this same energy, over time we begin to equate that specific energy with security, because it's what we know, it's what we're used to, it's familiar to us, and therefore it feels safe, it feels secure. What we know and what we've experienced always feels safe and secure to us. More safe and secure than something we don't know. And even if what we've known is abusive or harmful to us, we'll still prefer that. Most people will still prefer that to what they don't know. So what I'm going to go into now is Pluto. The placement of Pluto is this little guy here, this little blue guy that I circled. And the placement of Pluto shows you that energy that you've used for your most recent incarnations, that you're familiar with, that feels like security to you at that deeply unconscious soul level. And for you, that energy is Libra. It's a mix of Libra, which is Libra rules the 7th house, so there's that number 7, and then Virgo, which is the sign here. So what this shows for you is that in your most recent incarnations, security to you has felt like this need to be involved in relationships in order to feel fulfilled and complete. That's what feels like security to you, is relationships, being involved with all these different types of people. And then the Virgo piece, this is the generation that you were born into. So everybody born, I can't remember the exact years. I think it's like 12 years within a specific, 12-year time frame. They're all born in under that same sign. So people close to you in age, they're coming in to learn similar things and have similar experiences. And that Virgo, it can mean different things. Just like all these energies, there's a spectrum. Just like with any energy, there's a spectrum, and it can mean a lot of different things. But so some themes for Virgo would be service. So for you, you could have a lot of past lives lived where, you know, what feels comfortable, what's been known, what feels secure for you is relationships that were themed around service. Another descriptor of Virgo is crisis, and for the purposes of learning humility. So you could have, again, you know, a lot of past life relationships where that was a theme, where there was a lot of crisis in your relationships, or they taught you humility, you know, true humility, not surface humility. Let's see, what else? Yeah. So this, again, this Pluto is the unconscious. This is at the soul level. And then I like to think of, because I'm going to talk about 4 different points, you know, just like in the activation sequence, it has 4 different keys, right? Or the incarnation cross in human design, it has 4 different things that it's looking at. Well, in EA, we have 4 different things that we're looking at too. And this is going to be the bulk of your life and your life experiences. Everything that you experience in your life is built off of and based on this foundation. You know, 4 is that structure, that foundation. That's the number 4. So when I look at a chart, I'm like, okay, well, that's the subconscious. That's the soul's desire, is to, you know, to be in a relationship with all these different people, maybe for the purposes of service, or maybe for the purposes of crisis, to learn humility. And then, okay, if that's what the soul's been desiring to experience and learn, what ego, what identity is that soul going to choose for its incarnation? And then for that, we look at the South Node, which is the next of the 4 points. So the South Node is here. Now we're getting more conscious, because now we're talking about things from the egoic identity level and not the level of the soul. So for you, you have a South Node in Libra, so it's the same energy. So for you, somebody like you, because you have your egoic and soul energies, you know, in that same archetype of Libra in 7th house, that's the same energy. To you, this unconscious, deeply unconscious desire is going to feel more conscious than it would for other people who maybe had these Pluto and the South Node in different energies. But for you, you know, South Node in Libra and the 8th house. Okay, so this shows us the type of identity that your soul chose to fulfill its desire to have all these different types of relationships. And it also tells us what type of relationships that you're likely to have based on the ego that your soul chose. So for you, with that Libra identity, you know, Libra is about, it rules relationships, it rules balance, it rules equality, it rules paradox. These are its base themes. And then with the 8th, that's the energy of Scorpio. So Scorpio is about power over, power under, finding one's power or not through the other. Having power over other people or them having power over you, which can lead to imbalance, right? That's the shadow side of Libra, is imbalance. So for you in your past life, and for me, usually what we experience in our past life, we're going to experience some iteration of that again in our, in our current life. It's probably not going to look the same. The details won't be the same, but the energy and the dynamics of what's going on is going to be the same. So for you, just looking so far at this combination, here's a soul who is desiring to feel secure and to learn through relationships. So these different kind of relationships, either through service or through crisis and humility. And then we pair that with this past life identity, which you bring into your childhood and your, the family that you're born into, your childhood and your young adulthood circumstances. There's so many different possibilities, but one could be, being born to parents that there's some imbalanced power dynamics going on, in relationships. That's just one possible theme. And then, let me see. Okay, so that's kind of the history, that's where you've been, and then we want to look at where you're going. So in the beginning, I talked about, growing and evolving through polarity. So now we're going to look at the opposite energies. So we'll go to your North Node, which is the identity, the egoic identity that you're learning how to embrace and integrate in your current incarnation. And those energies are Aries and the second house, which is the energy of Taurus. Now, what I see a lot is that whatever we desire to hold on to, for security purposes, again, whatever is familiar, whatever we've experienced and we know, we want to hold on to that, right? We want everything to stay the same and remain constant so we can feel secure, even if those things aren't good for us, even if they're unhealthy. But that's not God's will. That's not the way the Creator made things to be. A natural law is that everything must change, everything must evolve, and it does that through the experience and integration of these polar opposite energies, because we live in a dualistic matrix, right? So a lot of times what I see is the Pluto, the soul's desire, is blocked in the life, and it's blocked for a reason. It's blocked because we're not meant to stay stuck and stagnant in those same energies. And the degree to which it's blocked will be the degree to which somebody is refusing, is trying to not obey God's laws, not obey God's will, which is that growth and evolution. So the more that we resist change, the more that we resist growth and evolution, which is what is. There's nothing we can do about it. We might not like it, but the more, the more we create suffering for ourselves, unconscious suffering that doesn't need to be there. So for you, there could be some blockages to having these relationships that you want. And this constant struggle around, well, why am I constantly being blocked from being with the person I want, or having the friends I want, or finding my tribe, or all these types of things. And again, the degree to which that's happening is the degree to which we're resisting what we're meant to, how we're meant to grow and evolve. So for you, that is, learning how to take this past life orientation, past lives, multiple orientation, to finding your security through your relationships and other people. And then, you can still have that. We can still have who we are and what we've known and who we've been, but we have to integrate those opposite energies. So for you, that would look like, okay, I'm really good. I have a lot of talent for relationships. I know how they work, and I am really good with people, but now how do I take that same, desire and apply it to the relationship with myself? That's Aries. Aries is the self. So, the North Node energies, the who we're becoming, who we're meant to evolve and grow into, is something that's never easy for us, because it's the polar opposite of what we've been, and it's really foreign and it's scary. And that's going to be a constant theme in your life, is wanting to go back to who you've been and what you've known and find your security there. And that happens for all of us. We all do that. So for me, whenever I'm facing obstacles or problems, air quotes, problems, I'm like, okay, here I go, trying to go back to the past. And, the problem is always that I'm being blocked from my past. Like, I want to go there. I want to be there, but it's not meant to be. So if I can find a way to be a co-creator with the creator and say, okay, well, that's my will to be in the past, but it's God's will for me to be, to go towards the future. And how can I bridge that gap? How can I honor my will and God's will at the same time? So I like to try to think about it like, it's not taking your relationships away. It's, okay, I can still have relationships, but I have to build up the one to myself, because that's something that I'm not used to doing or I don't have experience with. And then now we go to these eight and second houses, which is Scorpio and Taurus. Scorpio is, deeply merging with others in all the ways that one can merge with them, physically, monetarily, it's the sharing of resources. And that is something that has been in your history that you're familiar with, this wanting to merge deeply with other people, right? And that can take a lot of different shapes and forms. You know, you can want to merge deeply with them for different reasons, you know, for intimacy, for a perceived sense of power. You know, just there's so many different Scorpio themes. But again, if we're looking at your trajectory, you know, we'll just call this your incarnation cross, your evolutionary incarnation cross. It's to find, to go from, you know, finding your sense of purpose or power or identity or any parts of yourself through others, going from that to finding those things from within yourself. So Taurus is about self-reliance. That's part of your North Node energies here, the second house Taurus. So finding your power from within yourself, you know, finding your resources by yourself, that's all, you know, those are all Taurus things. And then once you do this, once you start doing your North Node energies, automatically the opposing energies to your Pluto are going to kick in place, and that's what's known as your Pluto polarity point. So it doesn't show it on this chart because chart generators don't show the Pluto polarity point, but for you, it's the first house, which is Aries energy again, and then Pisces. This is across from Pluto here. So, you know, once you're learning how to build that relationship up to yourself, you know, learning how to turn inward to meet your own needs, to find your own power and your own, you know, physical, monetary resources from within yourself and through yourself. That's going to set off this chain reaction to where now you're going to tap into these Pluto polarity point energies of Pisces and Aries. So I'm going to erase this so we can get a fresh look. So if we go from Virgo, you know, this is that past lives orientation to service, you know, serving other people, running into a bunch of different crises because of other people. Going from that, how you're growing and learning and evolving is, you know, we'll take the crisis component. So without crisis in our life, a lot of times it's the crisis in our life is what brings us to God, right? And that's what this Pisces energy is. It's that desire to merge with Source, to get back to the Alpha and the Omega, you know, to the everything. And that's what the crisis in our life does. And those crises teach us humility. And to merge with Source, we have to have humility. You know, we can't, if we don't have humility, God is not even going to be on our radar at all, because we're just going to be, you know, very egotistical, which is related to the sign of Leo, which is the sign that comes before Virgo. So what comes before Virgo, and that humility and that crisis and that service, is, you know, egotism. It's that life stage of the teenager where everything's about me, and it's not, you know, your kingdom come, your will be done. It's my kingdom come, my will be done. It's all about, you know, it's all about the self and the ego and the earthly things, and you know what I'm talking about. if we want to look at the service side of Virgo, service is our work. It's what we do for work. It's how we serve the collective, how we serve our tribe. And we come to a point in our life where, at a certain life stage, we're done with all that. We're getting ready to go into the Bardo, to the next life. And that's also what Pisces represents, that transcendence of the material, that transmutation of service through work to service through, connection with the Creator. Because in Virgo, we want to work, we want to serve, but there's still that element of egotism present where, like, I'm the one who's serving, I'm the one who's working, I'm the one who's doing all this for others, and it's not really us. It's the Creator that works through us, and that's the Pisces piece. So those are some of the things that that you're going to be learning throughout your life as you move away from that, finding your security through people and your relationships and finding it from within yourself. That's, for you, it's naturally going to translate into this deep connection with the all, with the Creator, with God. So those 4 pieces there, your nodes, which is evolution at the conscious. It's not really conscious for most people, but I like to think of it as the unconscious mind. Evolution through the unconscious mind are those nodes, and then the deep evolution through the soul, through the lifetimes, through the cellular memory, is that Pluto and Pluto polarity point piece. Okay. And then you have what's called a skip step in evolutionary astrology. It's when a planet squares the nodes. So we have the nodes here. And then you have your moon square or 90 degrees away from the nodes. And what this signature shows is that you have past life trauma that is or was blocking you from growing and evolving the way that the Creator intends. It's this trauma that's preventing this growth and evolution. And when this happens, the person will, what they'll try to do, nobody can escape growth and evolution. We can work with it consciously and say, okay, well, I know what's going on, and I'm going to choose, through my free will to do this. Or we can have to experience it unconsciously through things like crisis, through things like disease, death, betrayal, all the things. And when we do experience trauma and we don't want to look at it, we can feel like a ping pong ball on an enclosed tennis table. We're just going back and forth between these 2 different sets of energies that are we're supposed to be learning how to integrate and balance these opposing dualistic energies. So with that past life trauma, what happens is we go back and forth between the shadows of each set of energies instead of, integrating these energies, balancing them, in a healthy way where we do grow gradually over time. It's like when we don't have trauma, we can be more open to life and change and growth, because we're stable, we're strong, we're not traumatized. So we have more capacity to integrate the changes that, that everybody has to face that are just a part of living. And, we're taking how life's experiences are changing us, and we're saying, okay, maybe I don't like this, but I am going to learn from this. I am going to grow as a person from this experience, and we can integrate, how our life experiences have changed who we are. We can be open to that emerging, changing sense of self and identity, and learn how to integrate that into our old self, the self that we've known and had before we had those life experiences that served to change us. With trauma, that can be really difficult because we don't have that capacity to be open. We're so traumatized that, we're trying to block everything out that is change. Because when we have the traumatic experience, we make an association between the traumatic experience and the change itself. So therefore, we think change is bad, change is traumatic. And it's not. That's not what it is. It's that the experience that we had was meant to change us. It wasn't really meant to traumatize us, but sometimes, unfortunately, that's how we have to learn things and experience things. So with the moon square the nodes, this tells me that the part of your psyche, or the part of your being that was affected by the trauma is the moon, or the emotional body. So we're talking about, the concept of the self. If you go all the way around the wheel from Aries, which is the first sign, through to Pisces, which is the 12th sign, these 12 different signs are associated with the 12 different stages of human development. So with Aries, we're talking about the infant. The infant comes in, it's very self-absorbed, which is, appropriate for the infant. It's fresh, it's impulsive, it doesn't really know much of anything, and that's how Aries is. And then we go from that to Taurus, which is the sign of the toddler, and on until we get up to the sign of Cancer, which is where you have your moon. And this is, I think between the ages of 8 and 12 is what rules Cancer. So this is where, we've been the baby, we've been the toddler, we've been the child, we've been through Gemini, which rules communication, learning, okay, this is what a boy is, this is what a girl is, this is what a dog is, learning about words, communication. So we have this foundation, right? We're going, because Cancer rules number 4 again, this foundation, this structure. Once we get to around the age of 12 is when our identity, our ego is fully formed. And, past that, we're talking about the teen years. So with Cancer, our ego has been fully formed. And, we know what things are. We know kind of how the world works. We have all these skills, we developed walking and talking and all these things. And so now we're coming into water, the emotions, the emotional body. Now I'm beginning to understand myself as an emotional being, not just as, a being who knows things, right? That Gemini, which comes before Cancer. I know what things mean, but now I'm beginning to know who I am, through my feelings, through that water element. And, ideally, if the development was healthy, then by the time we're 12 years old, we have this strong, healthy sense of ego, of self. When we have trauma, which I do see, just anything square the nodes denotes trauma. So again, the trauma was to your ego, to your sense of self, to your emotional body. And then this fifth house is the energy of Leo. So the trauma, affected you emotionally. It affected your sense of self, your sense of ego. And that Leo component, it also probably affected your creative expression, creative self-expression. If our sense of self, if we're not secure inside of ourself and who we are, it's really hard to be, to self-express creatively without that secure foundation. And then, I can see some themes of the trauma itself. Get out my note paper here. Okay. Now this is past life. These are past life memories, past life trauma. A lot of times, just like with the life and the themes around the life, the themes around the trauma will be similar themes to what we experience in the current life, because we carry those energies forward with us. Okay, what am I looking at? Okay, so Uranus, this is the cellular soul memory. That's what Uranus is. And then it is square Mars. So there's a square aspect between Uranus and Mars here, which indicates trauma involving the will, personal freedom, or control. So with this type of trauma, there can be difficulty accepting limitations, because Mars rules Aries, and Aries does not like to be limited. Because Aries, it's the stage of the infant, and the infant does not like to be limited. The infant needs to have experiences in order to survive. If it doesn't have experience, it can't learn how to be and survive in the world. There can possibly be early life death memories. So you could have passed early on in a past life. And that can produce this subconscious fear that taking action will lead to destruction. And this is trauma that I have in my own chart, where, I did die early in a past life, and that fear around limitations and not being able to, to do the things that I want and have the experiences that I want before I die again in this life has been something that's really impacted me. So, and then another component of the past life trauma would be Uranus conjunct Pluto here. So this is trauma involving, now these are just themes, only you will know what resonates for you. And I have 2 Akashic reader contacts. They're both legitimate and they're both really good. So if you're interested in getting a past life reading from an Akashic reader, it's something that I highly recommend because it's helped me out a lot. But there could be trauma involving things like betrayal, betrayal from all these different relationships you've had with people. Things like sadistic abuse, and I think that that's a strong possibility for you just based on these Virgo energies that you're carrying. Virgo is masochism. It's power under. It's I'm going to serve others to my own detriment. And then a lot of times people with Pisces placements, the one shadow of that is sadism. So, you get involved with these sadistic type of people that want to have power over you, that want you to be in the service role. So whenever there's Virgo, somebody carries a lot of Virgo energy, that can be a dynamic that's happening. It's just that, sadomasochistic types of relationships that you've had in past lives, maybe even in this life. Another thing with this Uranus conjunct Pluto, trauma could be psychological torture or sexual abuse. And all these things, of course, they produce difficulty in relationships, and you've likely had experiences where with like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde type of people where they just, who they are changes on a dime, or their personality changes on a dime, and you're like, what the hell? Who are you? Right? Okay, and then with this Uranus Pluto conjunction in the 7th house here, there could be sudden changes in relationship structures, like, let's just say your partner all of a sudden becomes this person that you don't know who they are, and now you're breaking up, you're getting separated. There can also be expectations projected onto you from others, or vice versa, from you onto others. And it also denotes, codependence or hyper independence. With your signature here, if there was any of that going on in the past, I would guess it would be codependence or anxious attachment versus, the hyper independence piece. Let's see. I'm going to erase this. Oh yeah, and then with Uranus and Pluto and Virgo, the trauma could be persecution or critical feedback that leaves you feeling inadequate. That could tie into the moon and how that trauma affected your sense of self or your emotional body or your ego. It could leave you feeling like you're not ready for life or good enough to make life work. If we look at your whole history here, we can start to build a story, a possible story. I don't know all your life details. But, somebody who finds their security through others, what kind of others, people where there's this power over, power under relationship dynamics going on. People where you're going to be in service to them. People where maybe you're dependent on them, monetarily, with that merging of resources, that 8th house Scorpio. All those things can make it hard for you because you've been so dependent on others in all these different ways in your past life orientations and in the in the current life, it can make it hard for you to feel like, how do I make life work by myself and for myself? Or am I good enough to make life work for myself or by myself? And that's what you're learning, right? When you're learning how to navigate and integrate these new energies of Aries, that self-reliance, that building up that strong relationship to yourself, and learning how to find power and reliance from within yourself, and how the life experiences that you've had that have forced you to do that have gotten you closer to Source and God, that Pluto polarity point in Pisces. Okay, I'm just reading some notes here. Okay, I want to go into the shadows of each of these energies and, like the conscious and unconscious expression, because that can help us to know, to know these things. That way we can see, okay, well, I've slidden back into the shadow, and now I know where all my problems are coming from, right? I think I might just send you those in a PDF. That way you can have them on hand. I'm just going to do that. That way this video will be short too. And then you can be looking at those, as time goes on as you need to. Let's see, what else do I want to talk about? Your nodal return. So you're currently in your third nodal return. And our nodal returns happen every 18.5 years. So at the ages of 18, or around the ages of 18 and 36, you would have had your first and second nodal return. And now you're in your third nodal return. And during our nodal returns, that's a time where we have direct access to the energy of our nodes. It's a transit. So, like in human design, we might have a transit to a certain energy, and during that time we have access to that energy. So it's the same thing. So beginning July 18th of last year and going through January 11th of 2025, you're going to have direct access to these energies of your nodes. And because of that, a lot of these themes that I've talked about in this reading are probably going to be forefront in your life, and you're going to be working on them, and it's a really excellent time to work on them because you have that direct access. So I like to think about the nodal returns as windows of opportunity to add another layer of integration of our North Node and Pluto polarity point energies. We get a taste of them at 18, and then by 36, when our second nodal return comes around, maybe we can integrate them a little more, and then by our third nodal return, we can integrate them even further. So it's a really excellent time for you to be working on that. I have a past life tarot or oracle deck, and I pulled some cards to see if I could get more information on the past life trauma component, because it's a little bit vague, but I did pull a couple of cards that pointed to vows taken in a past life that could be impacting you in this life. I don't know if that's going to resonate or not, but I wanted to pass on the information because that's what came up. Let me see if there's anything else. Oh yeah, okay. So when we have a skip step, when we have trauma that's preventing or blocking growth and integration. There's a node, a specific node, and those specific energies that we call the resolution node. So these are the energies that we want to consistently apply as we work through the trauma, so that we can undo the block to growth. We can undo the trauma. And for you, it's the north node. So for you, you want to be consistently applying the energies of Aries, building that relationship to self, finding power from within yourself, learning how to support yourself in all the ways, physically, monetarily, all the different ways. And, as you work through the trauma to your, yourself, specifically, I would say your creative self-expression, creatively expressing that self that was traumatized. That's going to help you a lot to stay focused on those North Node energies. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, so I forgot to mention the rulers. It looks like for your North Node, the way that you're meant to, to actualize the strong, powerful relationship to self is through your career. Because your North Node ruler is here, it's Mars, and it's in the sign of Capricorn in the 10th house. And Capricorn and the 10th house are about your career and, how you show up in the world and what you do in the world. Okay, I'm looking over my notes to see if there's anything else that, let's see. I guess the last thing I want to talk a little bit about this Aries energy. And, so when you read my Jinkies profile, I was really impressed by you, and I was like, oh, I'm learning so much, just from who you are. And I was like, I wonder what that's about, I wonder what energies, what energies I'm latching onto here. But it's interesting because for me, my past life orientation is the polar opposite of you. So I have South Node in Aries, so I am really comfortable and secure in being alone, not so not so familiar and so good with relationships and other people. And that's what I was picking up on when you were reading my chart. I'm like, man, she was just so personable and so so interactive, and you can just tell that you have a lot of emotional intelligence and relational intelligence. And then my South Node is also in these Capricorn energies, which again is the polar opposite of you. These are the energies you're going into, is that Capricorn. It's that being comfortable with, being on your own and being, getting into this career and, creatively self-actualizing through that career. And that's where I'm coming from. I'm so comfortable with the doing part of who a person is, right? The doing, the career, the status, all that. But I'm really uncomfortable and not that I'm practiced with Cancer, which is your moon. That's your identity. That's who you are. It's that, that person who knows how to be. Maybe they don't know how to do so much yet, but they know how to be. And that's something that I'm learning how to do. I'm learning how to be instead of how to do. So I just thought that was really cool that you acted, you know, like as you were talking, I'm like, she's a role model for me, and now I know why. It's because you carry the energies that I'm growing into. And then me for you, vice versa. I carry the energies that you're growing into from my past. Like I'm really strong in those energies. I'm really strong in the energies that you're growing into, and you're really strong in the energies that I'm growing into. So in that way, we make really good mirrors for each other. Teachers and role models and things. So I wanted to share that with you first of all, and then I wanted to talk a little bit because I am so familiar with these energies that you're going into. I wanted to talk about them a little bit. The energy of Aries, it's very impulsive. Most of the time, it's fire. It's a fire element. So it doesn't like those limitations. Again, it has to have all these new experiences to figure out who and what it is, apart from others. So a lot of times, because it's so impulsive and it needs to have all the experiences to figure out who it is, who am I by myself? Not who am I because of this person or to this person, but who am I, to myself, by myself. And because of that, a lot of times the way it operates is it leaps before it looks. So it just does the thing. It's like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but I'm going to do it. Like a baby, right? The baby's like, it's very experimental and very curious. It's like, I wonder if I put my hand on this hot stove, what will happen? And, I'm really familiar with that energy, and it's gotten me in a lot of trouble because that's just what I'm comfortable with. I'm comfortable with, jumping off the cliff. Whee! Here I go. And I don't know what's below, and I don't know if I'm going to survive, but I've jumped off the cliff. And, for you growing into those energies, that has to be really uncomfortable. Just going out on your own and just doing the thing, just do it, not thinking about what somebody might think or how they might respond or how it's going to affect somebody, but just doing it. That manifests your energy. And that, just like with any energy, it can be utilized consciously or unconsciously, and it can be a blessing or a curse, but that's one of the really beautiful aspects of Aries energy, I think, is that, it's set up for growth and evolution, because a lot of times if we have knowledge of, what's really going on, of the mechanics of things, of the underlying workings of things, and we see what's really going on, it's hard to have that faith, right? And for some people, it might be the opposite. Maybe knowing those things will help them to have faith. But yeah, so that's just one little piece I wanted to share about Aries energy, and I don't know, maybe provide some comedic relief at the end of talking about all this drama. But yeah, I'm going to send you the shadows for each of, the energies that you've been working with in your 4 points of your evolutionary axis. That way, again, if you start to have problems, right? Problems in air quotes, because I do that too. I run into problems all the time, and I just look at what I'm doing, and I'm like, oh God, I'm trying to stay where I've been because it's what I've known and what feels secure. And I'm like, nope, I gotta integrate more of how I'm supposed to grow and change as a person. I got to integrate, more of God's will. I have to surrender more to God's will and be less focused on my will. And then I won't have so many problems. I create my own problems by trying to stay stuck and stagnant and old and not going where I'm supposed to be going. So yeah, and then knowing the conscious expression of the energies in your evolutionary axis can help you to begin working through that trauma, to say, okay, well, if I'm in the conscious expression, I know I'm headed in the right direction. I know that I've worked through some of this trauma and I'm headed where I need to be going versus, just staying, stuck in that unconscious, at that unconscious level and just, stuck in that, going back and forth between the unconscious expression of these two different identities. Okay, I've rambled on and on enough, so I'm going to stop this reading now and I'll get that stuff ready for you. Thanks for allowing me to read for you, and thanks so much for doing my reading. I have so many good things, good practical tips and things, so I really appreciate that I can use to bring into my everyday life. Okay, take care. Bye.